Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with unicorn builder Steve Hewitt. Steve is the former CEO at Gymshark. What a phenomenal story the Gymshark journey has been. Steve's leadership qualities and strategic vision have been pivotal in Gymshark's evolution over the last 10 years, from a startup to a billion-dollar-plus company. Steve has made it clear he wants to give back to the community, so I want to know the purpose behind his new venture for now. I know there's going to be so much to learn from this conversation with Steve, so let's get into it. Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
Tell me, who is Steve Hewitt?
First and foremost, a dad of two wonderful kids. So Maddie, who's 18, and Ollie, who's 16. So first and foremost, that's sort of effectively why I'm built in the way I'm built. So obsessed about my two kids. Husband, very happy husband, been married 20 years to Joe. That's the sort of the personal side. Obviously got a wider family, but immediate family is everything. Got two Labradors as well, who also don't listen to me actually. Professionally, people say, "Oh, you're a unicorn builder." It's definitely not that. That's just a spit out of probably being I'd like to think a decent coach. So a mentor coach, people's person, I would probably say. If somebody said to me, what I want on my sort of headstone, it would be, somebody who cared about people.
That's really humble, considering you are a unicorn builder. And take me back to a young Steve. What were the early influences in your career? Sort of who and what influenced your trajectory?
Yeah, so brought up in Newcastle upon Tyne on the outskirts. So, we came from a big Catholic family, sure. Irish Catholic family. So, come from a sort of a big family, sister, two brothers, church every Sunday. I was an altar boy, or tried to be an altar boy, didn't quite work out. But sort of family was everything, and that togetherness was sort of everything to us as a family growing up. Back then, Catholic schools, when you're brought up in that type of education, sport is hugely important in that educational world of Catholic schools. So did pretty well as a young footballer, and then you end up becoming the captain of the school team, and suddenly, even at the age of probably 8, 9 years old, you're sort of feeling this. Actually, I quite like this leadership in helping bring everybody together. If the chips are down, sort of you're the one who's got to lead by example. So
I think sport it transcends so much in life, both personal and business. And so you learned that from a young age. You learned that lovely feeling of being part of a team, but also the fact that you could reach out, maybe pull people up when they were down, motivate. And of course, that's a massive part of how you introduced yourself.
Yeah, without that, I certainly wouldn't have been lucky enough to go into the business and career pathway I've had without sport for sure. Our parents really looked out for us. My mum or my mam, as we say in the Northeast, is still a absolute born worrier. So I even today I'm here with you. I'll have to text her later to say that I got home safely. And at the age of 50, it's that's a big thing for her.
Fair play if you're still doing that though. There's people busy life schedule. You're actually looking out for your mum there as well as she looking out for you.
Yeah, and also you've always got that fear factor. I'm not frightened of anything really or anyone apart from my mum. It's like you don't get on the wrong side of your mum, right? So it's a respect thing as well.
Yeah.
So family, sport, just good friendship circles. Learned very, very early on. I think if you surround yourself with good people and good solid friends who have a good value set, actually that's the sort of the person you become. Because if you knock around with people who are not very nice, you end up becoming not very nice yourself. So I learned very, very early on that actually having a really good, stable friendship group was important. But, growing up, absolutely loved school. Most boys growing up school hated school. I thrived in school, loved it. Not academically, wasn't particularly great academically, just always had a good work ethic. If I look at my other siblings, they've also got a great work ethic. My younger brother will tell the rest of us he's smarter than all of us, which is probably right. But all of us have had a good work ethic, and I think that was instilled by our parents.
Yeah. So taking that forward, that's amazing, because I can see that sort of family values, the matriarch with your mum and that kind of respect, it resonates off you. Talking before off camera, how important it is to have the team around you and good people.
Yep.
So choosing the career, you kept sport at the heart of it. I know you went to Reebok and you excelled there, but you also saw the side of the kind of the brutal side, if you like, of corporate world.
Yeah.
And actually you learned a lot from that you didn't like. And I'm really interested to then get to the point where, of course, at that point you are in a position where you're evaluating what to do, and you get a phone call about a couple of lads that are trying to set up a sporting brand called Gymshark.
Yeah.
And then that really then realigns with all your values. So just tell me that little bit of the story there.
Reebok, or the corporate world, in many ways was fantastic. So you learn simple things like how to plan, professionalism. I remember doing my first ever presentation in front of people, was within the Reebok environment, and really struggled at first. But what a brand and the corporate world does for you is they tend to invest in you, so you actually become a much better version of yourself from a professional point of view. And without that, I definitely wouldn't have been able to go on and help Ben and Lewis help build, what became one of the best British brands, certainly in recent times. I'll call it the downside of Reebok is you only got looked after and developed and nurtured if you were in the fast track, the high performer.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to be effectively ring fenced as a high performer.
So survival of the fittest, very much that corporate.
Absolutely. So, and I'm mega competitive, so I really thrived in that event. But I also saw the way that environment treated people who were probably the way that Reebok would define those people, the plodders in the organisation, and they were sort of really looked over in terms of opportunity and culturally and when you build an environment, my view is that you need everybody flying in formation, not just the leaders, not just the A performers. You need every single person in your organisation in formation. So culturally, what it taught me was you can't leave anybody behind because you're much stronger as a unit than you are as just individuals in a bigger team. So I'm smiling here because I remember being at Reebok one day and it was like a big moment where I went, if I ever get a chance to lead, because I was in a senior role at Reebok, but I wasn't the leader. I wasn't the CEO. Certainly the EMEA sort of function.
Sure.
But I said to myself, if I ever get the chance to lead a business right from the top, I'm going to do it very differently to this. So absolutely, we're going to make sure that we have the right CVs, not necessarily the best CVs in the organisation, but the right CVs, but we're not going to leave anybody behind. So the people I'm going to spend time with when I lead a business is not just not that senior team, that C-suite. I'm actually going to spend a lot of time with, people who are actually at the start of their career, who actually might need a little bit of confidence building, who can actually become somebody who is, epic over time. So
it's brilliant. And what I love about that is that's empathy. That's learning from something that a lot of people are craving success through being successful. But actually, you've got to have, and you were successful at Reebok, but you also experienced and learned a lot from the things you didn't like.
Yeah.
And kind of ultimately, almost like parenting, the things that perhaps your parents didn't get right. I'm not doing that. They're the good bits.
Yeah.
And the importance of people and relating that to ultimately what became meeting Ben and Lewis, and actually kind of going into a place where the people become so important. There was the opportunity. So there's the opportunity that is Gymshark at that time. There's also the two lads. What's most important at that point? If the idea is excelling, exciting, but the founders themselves don't actually inspire you of any passion or purpose, for me, I'm just trying to get that message of like, what was it for you that got you involved with Gymshark?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because when you look on the face of it, leaving a brand, it's like Reebok, phenomenal brand in its time, to effectively take a chance with
it's a startup.
Yeah, I mean, it was when I met them, there was 7 people. It was turning over £4 million, and but I think they were onto something. I'll come back to that point in a second. But you're right, it always starts with people, and being candid, the first meeting I had with both Ben and Lewis was at a hotel in a little town called Bromsgrove. And I was introduced to them by a a sort of a mutual friend, a guy called Paul Richardson, and he said, "Listen, Steve, I think these guys are onto something, but they don't know what they don't know. And I think they may need your help based on your Reebok career and network." But back to value set, for me to be able to work alongside someone or people, they don't necessarily have the same outlook in terms of the way you build a business, but they definitely have a similar value set. And when I first met Ben and Lewis, I remember them rocking into the car park in gold-plated Audi R8s. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, the car that you drive defines you, but I think the way you drive the car defines you. And being honest, after that first meeting, I went back to Paul and I said, "You know what? They're onto something, but there's too much arrogance in their
ego.
Yeah, just a bit too much of a swagger." If Ben was sat here, he would absolutely agree. You know, the humility they didn't quite have. It was, you know, we don't really need the corporate planning. We don't really need the advice. All we actually need is just, you know, to tap into a network and we can do it ourselves. So it was really interesting at first because I was like, I don't want to waste my time or waste their time convincing them on how to build a business. And I don't mean in terms of the way that they were connected to the community. And I say community, Gymshark, I think, were one of the first brands that actually were built in that new era of brands where you could go direct to consumer and you could legitimately build a community. No brands had really done that before, not in the fitness world. So I wasn't going to teach them anything regarding that because they were the consumer. I definitely wasn't. I was obviously slightly older than those guys. What Ben and Lewis didn't know was actually how to build an environment.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by this statement. In fact, I was with an organization yesterday, and I reiterate this statement all the time. It's people who build businesses, and it's people who build environments. And without the people, you can have the best model in the world, but the model is not going to. It might work, but it's not going to maximize its opportunity. So, for me, it was a case of, would these guys and the rest of their smaller team be willing to listen to a older, we'll call it corporate work dad in Steve?
I'd call it mentor. That mentoring something that could be missing for so many Ben and Lewis is that never managed to make it because the ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
They won't ask for help. And I think that was a key thing when we talked off camera prior to filming today. And I think you went through this journey with them, and then there was a moment where I think it was Ben put his hands up and said, "I actually don't know what I'm doing here." And he said, "No, I can work with you."
Yeah.
I got that right. That was a
100%.
real moment for me that tells me just how humble you are. And also seeing the humbleness come in to Ben and go, "Right, okay, it's there. I found it. Now we can go."
Yeah, I like 100%. Sometimes they have to learn the hard way, which is through failure.
Find out themselves.
Yeah. Because actually you can spend a lot of time convincing them on what the right thing to do. But actually they need to witness and experience actually them getting it wrong, because that's when it hits home. And that moment, by the way, was Black Friday 2015 at Gymshark. There was no plan B, there was no plan C. Plan A was going to work, and there was a little bit of arrogance with the way that they were going to deliver Black Friday, and it imploded. And Ben came to me and said, "Right, like, what do we need to do?" And I said, "We need to employ people who are better than you and better than me, and let's go and build an environment. Let's go and build a North Star." So I'm obsessed with now a North Star building, because that's about purpose. And he said to me, "What do you mean by North Star and purpose?" And for me, Sunday evening has to feel like Christmas Eve, because there's that British working culture dread of a Sunday night at 6 p.m. going, "I've got to go to work tomorrow." Yeah. And that's not the way you should work in an environment. It should be, you can't wait to get into the office. You can't wait to go and collaborate with your other teammates at work. So I said, that's what we need to build. And passion, simply put, is, people say to me, "What's passion?" For me is passion is you have to love it, because when it's hard, liking it is not enough. And fast-growing businesses are easy watching from the outside and fun, but from the inside, they're hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And underlying with passion is often purpose.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I'm interested in was this North Star, this importance of scale. If Gymshark was just to be a big name in Birmingham, that wouldn't have been so interesting to you. You saw the opportunity to actually scale that, and that was aligned with the lads as well.
Yep.
So therefore, at what point was the vision to be what ultimately became at least $1 billion plus unicorn? When did that become the trajectory?
Really 2016, 17. I remember having a chat with Ben and Ben's dad, Steve, who's a great guy. And they both, we were at a meeting, both asked me a question saying, how far do you think we can take this, Steve? Based on my Reebok experience. And I'm being candid back then, this is sort of 2016, 17. I said, I think we can get it to £100 million net turnover. And they were like, really? Like, as in, that was a positive, really. And I was like, yeah, I think we can get it to 100 million. Now, in my head, I thought we could get it to a lot bigger, but I wanted to manage their expectations on what was possible, what was doable, because with young people, especially Ben, and he's still like this today, they're super impatient.
Sure.
So, if you tell them we think we can get unicorn status, then they want unicorn status tomorrow. And you have to build a business properly with the right foundations. So for me, North Star is effectively 4 buckets. It's purpose, why you exist. Once you work out that, it's audience, who you exist for. And Gymshark did that really well. We were laser focused on that social native, connecting and really building a true community. And people say to me, that's the secret sauce of Gymshark. And yes, it was part of the recipe of the secret sauce, but the secret sauce at Gymshark was the 3rd bucket, which was our value set. And people said to me, what do you mean by value set? And simply put, it's how are we going to behave as an organization? So if Ben, you want to go and park, or Steve, as CEO, you want to go and park in the disabled spot in front of the office because you can't be bothered to walk more than 50 yards, then you absolutely do that. But guess what the rest of your team will do? They'll mimic that behavior.
Yeah.
So for us, it was all about, let's live and breathe our values, both externally with our community, but also internally with our employee set. And suddenly you had this environment where we used to have people coming in on their days off for lunch at Gymshark in our little restaurant that we had because they felt like they were missing out. So madness, right?
So you created FOMO, fear of missing out.
Because of the environment, and we built the environment because of the value set.
Yeah. And did you build that through the whole of the workforce? Because it feels like, talking to you again previously, it wasn't just the kind of directors, it was everyone looked forward to coming in. You built that right the way through, and people that were going to do business with Gymshark. How can we do business? I want to be part of this.
Yeah. So the statement that I sort of brought in and introduced to the leadership team, and thereafter everybody else, was we wanted to create an environment that everybody wanted to be part of. So if you're on the outside, potential employee, potential external partner, supplier, the bank, whoever it was.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to create an environment where you go, something special is going on there and I've got to be part of it. Actually, that's the easy bit. The hard bit is once they're in, they never want to leave. And that's what we created. We created this environment where people people were like married to the organization, not because they were forced, it's because they had purpose. So they had that Sunday evening feeling of, I can't wait to be back at Gymshark HQ. Building what we didn't think was a unicorn at the time. By the way, the outcome of the spit out was never a financial event, and it was never talked about. It was, we're going to build this brand to outlast generations, and really the unicorn status was just a spit out of effectively living those.
So you left the money side of these out. It was all about how to get.
Never discussed.
Brilliant.
Never discussed.
That fascinates
we never
me.
discussed unicorn or financial event until we are actually in the process.
And it really is that whole leave the ego at the door mentality, and then not focusing on the money. It's just so important. I've been on the other end of that, doing property development, losing the purpose behind it, and then when things get really difficult, actually you realise that I'm not enjoying this. It's a tough place to be.
And you raise a good point that the thing with most organisations, especially public organisations, is they do exactly what happened at Reebok, is that the high performer is actually the person who's not great for your culture. They've built fear, they've built anxiety, yet they're the highest performers. So what do organisations do? They leave them, in fact, they don't leave them in place, they put them on a pedestal. So now you've got bad behaviour all throughout your organisation and a lack of trust, and now you've lost your Sunday evening, Christmas Eve feeling. For us, we made some hard decisions. It was never about the best CV, it was always about the right CV. So we did have a we didn't have too many policies back then, but our talent policy was we'd rather have a hole than a business. And that was like, and we lived and breathed it. So if somebody crept through who didn't have the right behavior, then we said, sorry, you can be the best performer in the world and you can nudge and be a game changer in terms of the financial performance, but you cannot stay part of the environment.
I totally get it. It's like the cold drip in a warm bath ultimately cools the rest of it. And you recognise the whole leadership thing for me that resonates. It's amazing. And actually, I'm going to shake your hand and say congratulations, because you built a unicorn. Sitting here now, not part of it.
I helped to build a unicorn.
But in the context of this conversation, really badly worded on my part. Part of an incredible team. But sitting here now, you are successful. You've been part of success, incredible success. How do you define success?
I'm going to smile here because most people, we do a lot of mentoring and coaching and helping, SMEs build and internationalize their business, all that kind of stuff at the moment. This is sort of post Gymshark. And I'd say most people's measure of success is money. What I've worked out with money is, yes, it gives you financial security, gives you financial freedom, which is really important, but reality is it only gives you choice. Like, success in terms of the financial element absolutely has to be part of the criteria. If somebody says to you, well, that's not a measure of success, they would be lying to you. But it's not top of the list. For me, success is when you are content. And the amount of people who I meet in business, much more successful people than me financially, are unbelievably never content. Now, the competitive side of you says that you're never content, and I'm a little bit like that. There's always something more. But I think, just be happy. Make sure that you've got phenomenal friends around you, people who are going to actually keep you in check when you start acting maybe in the wrong way. Success for me is making sure that our kids not only have a good value set and work hard and all those things that actually cost no money and actually, more interestingly, no talent. You don't have to have a degree to work hard and have humility. But I think for me, it's the people around me, especially my kids, just treating people really well. And people say to me, what's the best advice you've ever had? And this is where I should pull out names out of, big names out of a hat to say, here's what this person told me. It came from my daughter's primary year 6 school teacher as she was leaving primary school. And I remember being in the assembly, and he said in front of these 10, 11-year-olds, he said, this is where I should tell you to go be successful, go to university, make lots of money, be doctor, whatever that is. And he said, just be nice.
Brilliant.
So for me, it's about all of those things. And, of course you want to build a legacy. But legacy for me is about leaving the shirt in a better place than the one that you actually started in.
I was going to ask you how important legacy. You mentioned the children, and you mentioned the sort of team leadership side of things that you're helping people learn from right now, which is so valuable, so powerful. I've got another question that kind of relates to this as well. There's a lot of talk, a lot of books written about successful CEOs and founders and people in business that are up at 4 a.m. and they're smashing out a workout, running a marathon, reading a book by 8 o'clock and kind of owning the morning, owning the day. Where do you sit with that?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a 4 or 5 o'clocker getter-upperer.
That would inspire plenty of people.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I think the right answer, or in my opinion, the right answer is you've got to do what works for you. So, like 4 o'clock, I'm halfway through my second dream, being candid. Yeah, so I'm more probably an owl than a lark. So I generally do probably my better work in an evening actually than I would in the morning. For me, that works. So I'm not saying 4 or 5 o'clock getting up doesn't work.
No, it really is what works, because there is this stigma of, to be successful, that it's been drummed into so many podcasts and books. To be successful, you've got to be up. You've got to, and you clearly keep fit. It's very obvious you keep fit. So I'm interested to know what you do to keep it, and when you do it, that kind of routine and what works for you. But it's just refreshing to know that you're not actually complementing that and saying, I am up crazy early and doing all these things.
I'm also not a blade, by the way, but I'm not. I don't think you have to. It's whatever works for you. What I will say is, and I think this is probably the spit out of those books, is it's about having discipline a pattern, which then drive consistency. So the difference between good and great performance is consistency. If you look at Pep Guardiola, in terms of what that team and that environment has achieved, 4 back-to-back Premiership titles. I'm not a City fan, by the way, but
you can respect it.
Yeah,
you can learn from it.
And people say to me, if we apply that to business, what's the sort of the crossover? And the word is consistency. Now, you can't be consistent if you're not disciplined. So I get the 4 or 5 o'clock get up, but I think the spit out of that is actually it's all about discipline, which will then drive consistency, and also values also driving behaviour. Combination of all those things.
So there's a lot there that's mindset, and I find that interesting because I've asked you about the physical side of things, but there's a real kind of discipline around mindset and what's ultimately mental fitness. Has that always come naturally to you? Is that something you've worked on? And because I can imagine you've been a great mentor with that. Back, I'm learning from you right now. But is that always something you prioritize?
Yeah, physically, I think physically staying fit definitely helps your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely helps your mind. So for me, actually having that 3 or 4 sessions a week workout, I'm lucky enough to have a gym, so I've got no excuse not to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Which is painful at times, by the way. But I think from a mental perspective, people talk about resilience all the time in this day and age. For me, resilience it's always been relatively easy. Again, I think my parents taught me actually, think about the important things in life. So losing a deal or financially not performing isn't going to dictate your life. Since having kids, it's given me massive perspective. And I remember at Gymshark, we used to miss sale days. We used to, launch products or launch collaborations, which actually didn't quite go to plan. And you could see these 25-year-olds, something's going, oh my goodness, my world's going to end because we've missed that number or we haven't performed in the right way or against our objectives. For me, it was like, we're selling leggings, right? I know we're building a community in terms of the brand, but reality is we're selling product where we're not trying to cure anything. So for me, it's like, as long as my kids and my family are healthy and happy, everything else after that's a bonus. So keeping perspective for me is really, really, really simple, probably because of that upbringing, also because of the family.
No, I get that. And that also comes with maturity. You mentioned perspective. That comes from age and experience, and then the 25-year-olds, and we've been there, right? Probably Reebok days, different days, and we were like, I missed that goal or target. But with maturity and perspective now, what would be your advice to someone coming in to trying to set up a sports brand in particular, with all the things you've learned and seen, and with the changes that are coming through now, AI and so on? It's a different journey for someone coming in potentially now. But what advice would you give, and what's the one thing they need to do?
Yeah, I think people launching brands these days, they wait for perfection, and generally perfection never happens. It's a bit like building a website. This day and age, you can effectively build a website through a external platform and off you go. It's relatively easy to do. And most people sort of stop themselves because they overthink it, or they slow themselves down because they're waiting for it to be perfect. It's like, sometimes good is good enough. So just back yourself and go. The other thing I would say is surround yourself by the right people. So people who will give you sound advice, ultimately not the advice sometimes that you want to hear, the news that you want to hear. So people who are going to be honest, and somebody who you can trust, or a group of people who you can trust. So you talked about mentor, having a mentor in the background early days in that journey is massively important, because leadership and being a founder is a bloody lonely place.
Loneliness, it gets talked about a lot now. I feel like I could be surrounded by people every day. We're talking to different people, doing business with different people, but that loneliness can come from not knowing what the right decision is in the business, or what you've got to do to make something work. And it's not talked about enough, I think. And having mentors, having the right team around you, and being able to be vulnerable, being able to actually ask is probably a key thing. And actually that brings me to, and it's going to be my last question. I could talk to you for so long, but just in context of time, what are you doing now? There must be so many people that know your story, would love to work with you. You're probably very much in demand, but also you've got your own purpose. You've got your own desire to give back. So what is Steve Hewitt doing now?
Yeah, when I was CEO at Gymshark, we were incredibly successful, as you've kindly mentioned. One thing, and this is on me, we didn't give enough back to community. And I don't mean the Gymshark community. I'm talking about just people who are not in the same fortunate position as we were. So, I met a kid on a train actually coming out of Birmingham one evening, and he was with a couple of mates, and they weren't particularly nice lads. And back to friendship group, and friendship group defining you. I was like, why are you hanging around with these two guys? He said, I've got no friends. I said, oh, where do you live? I live in Kidderminster, which is effectively the next town to where I live. I said, where do you live? He said, I live in a place called St. Basil's. I was like, what's St. Basil's? And found out it was a homeless charity, and something had gone on with his parents where him and his sister effectively had been put into this wonderful charity called St. Basil's. Anyway, just hearing that story, anyway, we got him a job at Gymshark, and he did and he's now gone on to...
He didn't know who you were at this point, so that must have been quite a serendipity moment for him.
I didn't tell him who I was or what we did, and now I look back, and I've just heard actually this year he's gone to university, which I'm not saying is the be all and end all, but could have been on that track versus this track. And that was the moment where I went, there's an opportunity based on what we've achieved to actually really impact people's lives who are not as fortunate. So sort of set out on this thing of helping charities. So we work with a couple of charities, Birmingham Children's Hospital and St. Basil's today. But that's also got to be sustainable. So it was a case of what could we do, or what could I do to fuse like giving back, but also helping young business leaders and founders. And so we created this sort of advisory investment vehicle called For Now. And For Now is out of a book called Legacy by James Kerr, which means flying in formation, which is exactly what we do. We get organisations, like we did with Gymshark, to
all aligned.
If you ever see Canada geese fly, they fly in formation. It's the same analogy that we do with businesses. So it was a case of working with young founders, people going through that fast growth, which is hard, as I said, exciting from the outside, hard from the inside. And then effectively advisory investment or a part of those fees going back to those two charities. So you're helping people in the sweet spot based on what I did in 2014 with Ben and Lewis. So replicating that journey, albeit there's probably going to be difficult to replicate lots of unicorns. But really the purpose is almost like to use that vehicle to help people who are less fortunate. And my goodness me, I thought Gymshark was purposeful. It takes it to a next level, and without purpose you haven't got very much.
No, and you get fulfillment from it. Not in a selfish way. You can't help. I can feel it in you. Oh, like the lad on the train. And
I don't remember the old advert with Ready Breck, the guy where the advert was we had a glow around his body when he had Ready Breck in the morning as breakfast cereal. When you come out of a meeting with those charities and the impact that you can have and the communities you can build around that, it's exactly how you feel.
Yeah,
you feel alive.
I want to help you with that. That's almost like a tribal thing where that whole glow that resonates. I want to be part of that and help you with that. So I've so enjoyed talking to you. We've run out of time.
Me too.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Thank you.